What is happening? Merry Christmas, brother.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. What's up?
Just rocking and rolling, man. I was going to ask you. I saw. I didn't get to see it. I've intentionally been off of social media a lot lately, and just trying to avoid that distraction right now. I understand it's a priority. It's just not the priority for us right now. But I saw Wally Pipp on your on your feed, and I was going to ask you because I know you've been down the Patrick Bet David rabbit hole. As if you gone through the 2025 planning with Patrick Bet David?
Yes. So it was a few Fridays ago. We went through a whole day of it. A lot of some new ideas. That's where that idea came from. In fact, I actually just took the post down. I had the team take it down because it was just we didn't post it at the right time. So, just a kind of an FYI. What we do is we plan the whole week of posts out, at least those kinds of posts, in advance, and then drop them strategically. But that one got dropped too late, and so if it doesn't get the traction, we pull it, we bank it, and we put it back in line for another. So actually, I pulled the Wally Pipp post off my wall, but it was such an interesting story about showing up. Nobody knows who. I mean, I don't think that most people, even people that are baseball fanatics like myself, even knows if they were say, who's Wally Pipp?
I think this is a great way to start this conversation today because as we're wrapping 25, we're recording this on New Year's Eve, 2024. We're at the halfway point of the decade. Okay, just put everything into perspective of where we're at. Tomorrow we move into the second half of the decade. If you're not looking at kind of strategically long term, if you want to have a 5-year run, right, and you can have some fun with it, Al, where do we want to be at the end of the decade? Right? It just sounds cool, right? Think about it. What are we trying to do? Where we're going to be at the end of the decade? But this is the great story to just kind of kick off, to put things into perspective of what we're thinking, where we're at, because it just goes to show you, there's a couple other things that I want to add to it, but I want you to tell the Wally Pipp story. It is fascinating.
I'll dig into that, but you touched on something else that just got my wheels, as you always do. You always get the wheels in the brain turning. And in 5 years, we're going to be at 2030. Let that sink in for a second. Yeah. And when we think about where we're at today, 2025 versus 2020, think about what's changed just in these. And I don't know about you, I feel like the last 5 flew by.
Fast.
It felt like it flew by so fast. Obviously, the 2020 started out COVID, which lasted a few years of just complete weirdness, changed everything, even from the way we, do events and Zoom. Hopefully, I didn't own some Zoom stock, but if I turned hands,
go back and get some of that.
2019, I would have gotten me some Zoom stock. But the question goes back to 2030, right? So we're on the second half of this decade. What is 2030 going to look like? What is AI going to do to this entire world? I'm already seeing, I don't remember who said it, but I was listening to a podcast, and the last 2 to 3 years ish, it's been all AI this, AI that. Take this AI course, get certified. They're all good things too. They're all the education's amazing. But there's still this haze of space junk, of AI, all the tools and this and that. And I believe that more than 60-70% of agents, people, they don't even know where to start with it, and still are just 2025, AI is we're going to now really see it be working right in front of our noses, right in front of. I'm seeing some new stuff that's coming out right now that's just absolutely mind-blowing. I think what they're doing is the last couple of years, they've been like, oh, it can do this. Oh, let's make an app. Oh, it can do this. Let's make an app. Now they're building it in one big machine.
Yeah.
And it's going to blow us away. So I think, when you think about 2030, what is that going to look like?
Mm.
What jobs are going to be replaced by them? You know, it's fun to think about it. And then, of course, think about where you're at now and where do you want to be in 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Runway to think about. But yeah, so we can talk about Wally Pipp, but I just wanted to finish your thought about 2030 because I didn't even think about like, oh my God, this is the last half of the decade.
Yeah. So Perso and I were we did a conversation last week. It was last Expert Mentors of the year we did. So I had Perso on, and he brought the Amazon. He brought the Bezos question. He said, everybody asked me what's going to change over the next 5-10 years. He said, the one question that nobody asks me is what will not change over the next 5 to 10 years. And that was just a really interesting way to kind of think about it, right? Like all the sexiness, everything like we're seeing is, it's a part of it, right? It's just, it should make you more efficient, should, allow you to maybe creep into what you're really gifted and what you're really better at, get you in that productivity zone a little bit better, leveraging AI. I think where AI, like what the pandemic did to the global workforce, right? One of the benefits that came from that was it collapsed time and it unlocked the talent all over the world. And because you got to think, talent all over the world, they were going into office buildings. They were traveling in, commuting in, doing those things. Well, now they're forced to be at home. That's just become part of their life, right? So you've been able to tap into that. And so that was kind of getting into the labor cost of talent, being able to shrink down to get within the salary cap, a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 position in our industry on the administrative size, an absolute rock star. Now you're getting for 10, 12, 13, 14,000 a year. Yeah. And I think that, the next jump now to me is that AI, that personal assistant in your pocket for 1,200 a year, 1,000 a year. Right. So it's just collapsed down. It's where kind of, I think things are going to go, but he brought up a lot of great points, things that are not going to change, right? Yeah. Trust is not going to change. Local expertise is not going to change. Experience, customer service, just, things that won't change, that'll always be there. Work ethic. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think a lot of the weirdness that you talked about that's happened the last 5 years has pushed the laziness and the work ethic and the things like that. So, joke that, talent will get you a long way. I mean, hard work will get you a long ways. Talent will okay, but hard work outworks talent every day. And I think we're going to see more and more of that moving into the future. And I think that kind of a little segue here for Wally Pipp, because what happened to Wally Pipp?
Well, yeah. So the story, when I was at the business planning and we were, going through an exercise where it started out with this picture of this baseball player. And he asked everybody, Patrick asked, do you know who Wally Pipp is? I'm like, I have no clue who that is. Then he's like, everyone know who Lou Gehrig. Now, this is in real time, like 3 Fridays ago.
Yeah. And
I've been a baseball fan my whole life. Lou Gehrig has been one of my faves, but really because of his accomplishments and what he did. It was before my era, obviously, before I was born. But I mean, what an amazing story. Like what he's won has just been like, he's an iconic legend in the baseball world. But no one knew who Wally Pipp was. And Wally Pipp actually was playing for the Yankees, helped them win a few pennants.
World Series. Won a couple
World Series. He was an MVP, had I think most hits, homers, or RBIs, whatever. Like, he was a decorated player on that team. And then one day he had a headache. And Wally Pipp just decided to sit the game out. And the game that he decided to sit out, Lou Gehrig, this guy that kind of came from nowhere, filled his spot on the field. And from that day forward began his iconic march. And I actually have, so, 2,130 consecutive played games.
Yeah. And how many seasons is that? How many years is that? It's like 14, 15 years of not taking a day off.
That's unreal. Yeah. Thank you for putting that in some perspective there. 2,130 consecutive games. And that record stood for 56 years.
That's wild.
Okay, until Cal Ripken Jr. broke it. And I think he's 2,600 plus games or something. And with Cal, it was a decision that he made to just like, you know what? I think I'm going to leave it right here. And you know what I mean? Like it was more on he made the decision to like, this is where I already broke the record by like over 500 games. I think I'm going to leave it right here. But the point of the story is that no one really knows who Wally Pipp is.
Right.
And he could have been great, right? Like, instead he had a headache. He decided to sit it out, stay home from the game. And Lou Gehrig moved right into his position and became arguably one of the greatest baseball legends that we'll ever see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So fun story, fun perspective in thinking about your 2025. How many days are you going to sit out? And there's another way I like to think about this. I don't know where I heard this, but think about it like along the lines of, oh man, I just had it. When we're distracted by things, and when I say distracted, I'm talking mentally distracted and we're not able to get things done. If something triggers you and all of a sudden you get out of your creative mode, your productivity mode, the positive momentum mode that you have going, right? And all of a sudden something just throws you off because of our lack of mental control of our emotional intelligence. How many days does this? And I'm actually giving away another post I'm about to be putting up here in a day or so, actually. Okay, so this is a little teaser. No one's going to actually. Well, by the time this is actually public, you'll be able to see it on my wall. But how many days per year do you think, if you really thought about it, do you lose because you get thrown off?
Yeah.
And I added mine up. It was over 100.
Yeah.
And it's just like you average over the course of a month. How many times do you get triggered to a point where it just completely throws you off of your game and it takes you a day or two or whatever to get it back? Like that, those are just the little tweaks that I'm working on 2025 and having that high level of an awareness of not letting it throw me off. I can't afford to lose those days. I can't afford to take one day off because of a headache or I'm pissed off about something and I can't even change the outcome. My pissiness and anger ain't going to change shit. So, this is just kind of like tying it back into, where my focus of 2025 starts.
Yeah. And, I wasn't able to sit in live. So I've been going through the recordings and I went through, I've got maybe I think right at 2 hours left to get through the rest of that training. And it's been really, really good. And, one of the things kind of you were talking through there had so many things that stood out, but to that point is that when you fill your day with important activities, the distractions fall off. And, I've always gone about, the calendar, no white space, and then having got a minutes, because when somebody reschedules on you or cancels or runs late, that just opens it up. That just opens a crevice for distractions to come in. But if you got a minutes, you can go back to the important things, then it allows the distractions to stay away. But I really loved that point that you were talking about is how many number of days, of conflict that you had to deal with, and how many did it cost you? It cost you over 100 days. And then if you know your buyback rate, you know what your time is worth, just do the math. What did that cost you in real dollars? What did that cost you because you were dealing with conflict and stress for 100 days? What if you cut that in half, in 3/4 of that, cut that down? What does that do, back to your earning potential moving into the future? And one other thing, and we can kind of move on, but if you guys have the opportunity to go get the recordings for Patrick Bet-David's 2025 planning, go do it. It's well worth the investment, whatever it is. I think it was like $300 or $400. I was like, it's worth 10 times that amount, just for the recordings to be able to go through it. But what I really liked when he gave the example of, he talked about starting, if you were to start your town with 5,000 people, how would you go about building it? How would you start? What would you look for in the people, the quality of people? And he said, you're looking for two types of people. You're looking for reliable people, but you're also looking for impactful people. And he kind of gave some of the musts, and the must for a reliable person is hard skills and character. And that was really, really good. But then he said, most people, that not everybody, but if you want to be an impactful person, if you want to be an impactful human, then you got to focus on the soft skills and the paradigm shifts. And I know how important the soft skills. Gary Vee talks about it all the time, right? The soft skills are the hard skills. Those are the ones that that really elevate you.
Give us some examples of soft skills, just so we're anyone.
Yeah. So he talked about examples of communication, of teamwork, adaptability, problem solving, creativity, critical thinking, time management, leadership, emotional intelligence, conflict resolution.
Yeah.
And so that was really good. And then he challenged, if you remember this, and I would love to be, really curious kind of what maybe skills that you're looking to improve and commit to in 2025. But he said, every CEO, every head of company has to have these skills, every one of them: selling, negotiation, persuasion, conflict resolution, accountability, leadership, finance, marketing, and better meetings. And, we always talk about the best marketer always wins. It's down towards the bottom of the list. He said selling. And then I remember what he said. And one that really stood out to me was conflict resolution. And he said, if you want to improve a majority of these, you get better at conflict resolution. You get better at hard conversations. You get better at dealing with that. And he said, because if you're going to get better at conflict resolution, then you're going to be better at selling. You're going to be better at negotiating. You're going to be better at persuasion, and you're going to be better at leadership. And I'm like, me, man, right? If I can check off one and improve 4, I'm going to go do that. And so that was definitely my commitment for the year. So I immediately, in the training, I order conflict resolution playbook.
Awesome.
I then I go back to my Audible, and I'm like, I have crucial conversations that I never finished. I'm going to go back and restart that. So I started listening to Crucial Conversations again. And it goes back to the framework. You and I have talked about this. We've said it many times on in this conversation with the One Big Fire podcast is the framework that Coach Matt gave us, the smoke and fire. And if you understand smoke and fire and getting real and having the right conversation, get out of the smoke, get into the fire. What is the human need that is being met? You can work through conflict resolution. You can help people get to the destination they're wanting to. You can get them to find common ground. You can get them to what they want for them. And that's a win for them. And that's a win for you. You can inspire, you can lead just by having the framework of having the real conversation. So that's my focus, kind of my immediate commitment, skills to improve moving into 25, just because at the end of the day, man, and it's like one of the things that we know won't change, like what Joel was talking about going into the last half of the decade, is that people do business with people, and they're not trying to do business with a company that there is that human connection, right? And so you got to be able to be a good human. You got to be able to build trust. You got to be able to help people solve problems. And I just think no matter what happens into the future, real estate will always come down to a decision of trust. And are you, being authentic and transparent times time to really build trust in your marketplace, in your community? And I think that's just where a lot of us need to pay attention and focus.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and that kind of dives into, when you're talking about things you want to work on, the foundational building blocks of you as personal development and becoming a better leader and better human and better husband, dad, all those things. The one thing I bought, and I bought this for everyone in my family.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So I went ahead, and I know you've been doing this for a long time, and your son, you do your Sunday planning, and this and that, but this is just one of those things that I've been talking about for years. Started and never finished it, but I'm committed this year, and you know what? I may not get it 5 days a week, but I'm going to get it 4. It's kind of like what someone shared with me, which I didn't know, was in your first like 15 minutes of the day is when your unconscious is the most, I guess, open and able to actually output and take in that first 15 minutes, which is why it's good to do, if you're going to write your gratitude, what you're grateful for, the best is to do it in the morning.
Yeah.
And so that's one of my commitments. And these are just like little commitments that I believe are going to add up to big things, especially starting the day out with a fresh, like, what am I really truly grateful for? Because in 2024, I don't know about you, John, I found, not all the time, thankfully, but a lot of times, I was like, I just felt like I was in a rut, in that day. And like, sometimes it was just confusion on priorities of, which way do I want to take my business and coaching, recruiting, and doing the things that we do? What's the right next step? What can I get excited about? Going through those things. And sometimes as I'm brainstorming those things, it sends me into a rut. And now I find myself back into that lack of emotional intelligence piece where it can throw me off an entire day. I can lose the whole day. And then I wind up, I look and it's 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and I haven't gone to the gym yet. So I've been going, I hit the gym late or whatever, but I just have this cloud. So like starting my day with gratitude, I think is like the best first thing that we can do, because it's really hard to be pissed off when you're constantly reminded about all the things that you have to be grateful for.
Yeah, it is.
So
it's one of the best. I love that, brother. And I can't wait to see, because I know you're doing it with the boys, you're doing it, with everybody in family. And I just can't wait to see, conversation 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now, 24 months from now, because that's really where it starts to transform. And I know it's not one thing, it's a combination of things. And to me, that's just part of the process. And, too often, and I see it with real estate agents all the time, and it's what you're talking about. You lose a day because you're getting caught up in your feelings, and you got to get quickly out of your feelings. But most of the people don't have a default. They don't have a process to fall into. Gratitude is part of the process. It's not the process. It's just part of the process. Going to the gym, eating right, listening to motivational things, reading books, silence, prayer, like whatever that is for you, the mindfulness practice, it's all part of the process. And I think the more that you can continue to evolve and improve the process, it makes you just such more of a calm human being. And we talk about it all the time. Leanne and I talk about it all the time of, how can you continue to become the calm in the middle of the storm, the chaos, right? You got to have a process to be the calm. You can't just sit in it. It's got to be part of it to be able to sit in it. And that's really because calm is contagious. Calm is power. And when you bring that calmness, and you have this about you as well. And I don't know if you've worked yourself into this, but what I've noticed with you, and I've noticed it a couple of years ago, is I think you started to set some real firm boundaries of what you'll allow into your world and what you won't allow. I mean, I've been in meetings with you and you just gracefully exit. And I'm like, wow, I love that. But I think it started for you is that you just put up some very firm boundaries, some guardrails, and what you'll allow into your life and what you won't allow. And I think that's really, really important lesson of moving into the future, of having clear boundaries. What is your process that you'll stick within to any time that the chaos happens, to where you can sit in the calm? And I think that's where you have to start with, hey, listen, hard no here. This is my boundary and this is my process. I'm working with gratitude. I'm working with mindfulness. I'm working out every day. I'm lifting heavy things. I'm doing some cardio. I'm connecting with the outdoors. I'm spending time with people that I love, that I trust, that are part of my inner circle. It all adds up. And it just, to me, that's where the fulfillment in getting into kind of one of the things that you and I were talking about before we came online, into that perfect day, and really what that is. And to me, that's the goal, right? Start with the end in mind. What is the goal? What are we trying to do here?
Yeah. Well, when you we can talk about the perfect day, because I was actually about to ask you, like, what things do you do, kind of just to prepare for the new year? Is there anything that and what we've all been doing, at least me, I've chose New Year's Day because it's just a good day to do it, is the perfect day exercise with Frank Kern. But kind of going back to, before we dig into that ties into the mindset of boundaries. And the boundaries start with a bit of an awareness and what I would call mind your own business. I think the reason I've been able to kind of make this shift, and it's ever evolving. It's not like I've arrived in this place of Zen where I can just be like, that is not the case, zero whatsoever. It's just more of it's an advancing of an awareness. And what it boils down to is it's none of my business if somebody else just doesn't get it. It's none of my business what they think about me or my way of life decision that I want to go. It's none of my business. And you shouldn't make it your business. And it's when people make other people's opinions their business, like, okay, well, what if I were to just excuse myself from the situation? What would they think of me? You should, really start focusing on, like, not focusing on what they think of what they're going to think of you. Mind your own business. It's none of your business what they think.
Yeah.
When you come to a place where, what, I'm good right where I'm at. I'm grateful for everything. That reminder's there every single day, and I'm learning. And also, like I had mentioned in the post, even grateful for the fleas. Even grateful for that moment that I got to step out of. Yeah. How cool is that? I may not want to be here in this meeting with these particular individuals, but you know what? I'm going to feel good. I'm going to feel good about it. And it doesn't need to be the outcome that I'm really that I wanted. That's cool, but that's none of my business. This, I'm going to control what I can control, and I'm going to ignore what I can't control. And the more that's come at me over the last 5 years from 2020, I mean, think about going back to like the pandemic when we had no control whatsoever.
No,
we were shut out of restaurants, shut down. Streets are like, like an apocalypse hit, where, everything's empty. Businesses are closed. People are being forced. Kids couldn't go to school. All this stuff, the government stepped in and all, we felt under, with no more control over our own decisions and bodies. And we got to get the jab and all this stuff. So like, I think that a lot of people have been forced to get that awareness. And I think now, just like looking back 5 years, what can you pull that of, like, what's the part of you that grew the most from all of that? It's kind of like the Stoic, philosophies behind Stoicism and stuff like that. And I haven't dug deep into that. I think I only got one book on it, but one thing at a time. I'm writing down the conflict resolution book that you just got, but I got like 3 or 4 still just from the last couple of podcasts I got to get through. But
yeah, I think that's the beautiful thing, right? That's the character. That's the character development. That's the personal development side of things. And knowing, I think making a choice that, hey, I want to be an impactful human. And what is it going to take for me to evolve into the next version of myself? Because, I think that's one of the worst things, right? Where complacency, I think, is one of the worst things. I hate to see it. And, it's the Al Bundys that are still out there and reliving, think their best days are behind them. And I don't believe that. One of the things that shifted for me with Bet David's conversation, thinking 40 years down the road, and that put me in a whole nother perspective. I'm like, shit, 40 years down the road. Okay. All right. What's 87? What's 88 look like? Who do I have to become, to be able to live to that point? And what's the things that I want to have? And one thing that really stood out, and I wrote this down on Christmas Day, how do I want to be remembered? And I think I pulled it from one of Ryan Holiday's, talking about stoicism, pulled it from Ryan Holiday's stuff. And it was a quote from a CEO. I've seen the clip on Instagram a couple times, but it was the CEO saying, I want my kids to think I'm a good man and want them to come home for the holidays. That's all I want. I just want my kids to think I'm a good man, and I want them to want to come home for the holidays. And you start to think back, and it's like, shit, that meeting wasn't worth it. That appointment wasn't worth it. That going out of town trip wasn't worth it. That decision wasn't worth it, because that didn't move me closer to being a better man. That didn't move me closer for my kids wanting to come home for the holidays. And I think that's kind of gets into choose your enemies wisely. It doesn't have to necessarily be a human or another person. It could be a thing, and it could be a thing of that enemy is the decision that would look ill upon what my kids think, and the significant others and the people that I truly want to spend time with. Do they want to come home and spend time for the holidays? And it's just, I don't know, it just kind of puts things into perspective. I think that's kind of also the levels up of life. Bet David even talks about where, scarcity to status to freedom, and then ultimately on to legacy. And I think that's the legacy.
Yeah.
Is that point, to where, the people that you love and care about the most, they want to spend time with you. They want to go out of their way to come spend time with you. To me is good. Nipsey has a thing is like, man, do you know how kids spell love? Time. That's how kids spell love.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good.
I love the, that's a great, really, really, I think accurate, depending on where you're at in your life, right? And obviously, if you have little ones, your kids are home every holiday.
They don't have a choice.
Yeah, right. But if they're grown like ours, and I know you have one little one still, and the rest are grown like mine, that's a great, like, do they really want to come home, see mom and dad, or, are you creating the opposite environment? Are you creating an environment that's toxic, that wants to, that makes it so that they don't want to come home? We see it in movies all the time. Like, I don't feel like going home and dealing with mom and dad and their bullshit. And you know what I mean? Like, what environment are we really creating, and then having that awareness over it? I know we focus on that. We focus on trying to have the most drama-free environment, but drama is part of life, and it's going to creep no matter who you are, no matter what. It's a matter of, again, going back to conflict resolution. How
do you deal with
that situation, right?
Yeah. How are you dealing with it? I know you talked about the question of heading into the new year, heading into the future. For me, it's always a default. So I think some of the things that we're talking about, we're sharing, we're starting with the end in mind. And, I just don't believe you commit and figure it out. I believe you figure out what it is that you want to achieve, reverse engineer. And then you look at, a hard look in the mirror and is like, am I willing to commit to becoming who I need to become in order for that to be true? And it has to move towards freedom. It has to move towards the perfect day. And my definition of freedom is the two things. It's financial freedom. What is the amount of money that you need coming in to live the life you want to live, do what you want with whomever you want, wherever you want, without trading time for dollars? Are you making the decisions to put those mechanisms and those things in place? And then the other half of that equation is the perfect day scenario. And it's Frank Kern is where we got it. And really what Frank is trying to talk about is that you have two identities. You have this external identity that you're who you believe you should be or behave, and things that you're doing in the day to day, and probably not being authentic and genuine to truly who you are. And then the other identity is your core identity. And when you go through this exercise, it starts to pull out that core identity. And the question is real simple. If there were no limitations or consequences, what would your perfect average day look like? And essentially what he's saying is that no consequence. You can't have the purge, right? That's not your perfect day. You can't live the purge, and you can't do something, go scale Mount Everest that could potentially kill you. And, it starts from the moment that you gain consciousness in the morning until the last thoughts that you're thinking at the end of the day, as you're closing your eyes. And you just walk through in as much detail of that day as you can. And what you start to uncover is like, man, who am I having lunch with? What am I eating? What are we talking about? And then you catch yourself in the moment. You're having lunch and you're like, dude, I would never eat this on my perfect day. I would never be with this person on my perfect day. I would never have this conversation on my perfect day. Then why are you?
Yeah.
Why are you now? And you start to pull that out. One of the books that really pushing everybody going into the new year, going into the second half of the decade. I mean, it's universal. 2 books in business, no matter what you're trying to do. Obviously, if you're struggling with other things or whatever other commitments, there's so many other resources and books. But no matter what, no matter where you're at, no matter what you're struggling with, I believe you should go through Bet David's book, Choose Your Enemies Wisely, 12 Building Blocks. It's the perfect business plan book, training course. I believe go through that. But others, and we talked about it, is go back to Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time. And at the beginning of his book, he talks about Oprah. And he talks about Oprah's day. Oprah is living the perfect day. She works out twice a day.
Yep.
She sips rosé in her garden while she's having lunch. She then proceeds to work. And this is what I found, that everybody that honestly does the perfect day exercise, just does it authentically, just true, everybody works. And everybody typically works 2 to 4 hours. And Oprah still works every day, and she makes $100,000 decisions, but it's no different than us. Maybe we're making $100, maybe we're making $1,000, maybe we're making $10,000, but we're making decisions every day. And I think when you really boil it down, and this really helps people with their ICP, their ideal client profile, who they should be working with, who they don't want to work with. Because if I got to work with this person every day, Groundhog Day, I want it to be a person that I love. I want it to be a problem that I love solving.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the perfect day exercise, if anyone would love to go through it, just YouTube, perfect day, Frank Kern. There's a couple that are going to come up. I want to say it's maybe an hour and 14.
That's the long full version. There's a 7-minute video. There's a 7-minute.
There's a 7-minute one, whichever one you have the most time for, but highly recommend going through it. It starts to dial in, like you had said, once the awareness is there, that this is what my perfect day, and mine did include a few hours of work, and here's the other thing that's super important, and why I do it every single year and not just, okay, I did it once and I'm good, because it changes. Mm-hmm. Your perfect day changes. Mm-hmm. Mine's changed every single year. Yeah. And that's okay. That's the whole reason why you want to repeat the exercise and do it over and over again. It brings me back to like a vision board thing. And this is another post I'm going to be putting up, because I've never done a vision board. Never done one. And I started thinking about why I never done one. I like the idea of it, but I've actually never executed on one. And we did a little research in it. They said that there's, I think I have it right here. There's 2 types of people that have not done a vision board. And one, let's see here. The first type is, where is it? Shoot. Well, I can't remember what both of them are, but one of them is someone that has already made it, so to speak. They feel like they've already made it, whatever that means. And the first type, I'm trying to look through my notes here, what the second type, or the first type of person that's never done one. But the bottom line was like, I've never done one, and I can't figure out why. Well, I dug deep into it, and it's because I've never been busting my ass and working hard for material things. And in my mind, I've always been thinking of a vision board. You get one of those, super high-end magazines, you chop it up, you get your glue stick out and you put it on a board, and you make your vision board. And in my mind, I always equated that to, well, this must be material things. And I never did multiple homes or multiple cars or a fancy car, boat, none of that. That wasn't my aspiration. So right. Whoever I was talking with said, well, what was it then? And this kind of leads into that perfect day. And it's always been freedom. And they're like, okay, freedom, that's fine. That's an easy one to just go to, because it all becomes a freedom thing or happiness, right? But mine was, when I dug deeper, was a lack of stress because of money. Is that I grew up in a household where money was the core cause of 90% of the stress in that household.
Yeah.
So because that's how I was, raised, and I'm not ungrateful for that, because that came with a load full of lessons that built me to who I am today. But really, I had to drill down. Why wouldn't I do the vision board? It's because I wasn't putting Ferraris and boats and shit like that on it. I wouldn't have done it. So I'm like, why would I do it?
Yeah.
But going through Patrick Bet-David's business planning that day, it gave me a different perspective on that. And Patrick's actually a great example of it, because he sold his company for over $250 million. He does not have to work for the rest of his life.
Nope.
He is wealthy and will be wealthy as long as he doesn't really fuck it up. He doesn't have to work. Yet he started 3 more businesses, maybe more than 3 that just come to my mind. And he is living his perfect day. He goes on, hangs out with 3 or 4 of his best buds and does a podcast 2 or 3 times a week. Usually I think it's 2 times a week is what he's kicking out, 2 a week. And those are 3-hour long podcasts. It's no joke, but that's his perfect day.
Yeah.
That's his perfect day, and so I encourage everybody to go through it, and you'll start to eliminate those little things that are making your days imperfect. And it's not just a matter of adding things to it. It's a matter of eliminating things from that. And in about 4 weeks, I'm leaving Ohio, and I'm piling everything I can fit into my F-150 with Snoop, and we're driving to Lake Tahoe, and I'm going to live there for a month. And I'm going to, work. I'm still going to work, still going to have, be on appointments and calls at a certain very, very small window of time. But I'm also going to be skiing daily, and going out for an hour, coming back, getting my exercise in, taking it all in. And, we have, Court's coming out for a week. My boys are coming out for a week, and some of my other ski buddies that I ski with. But that's part of my perfect day. When it's not, for me, it was always like, oh, wake up in Florida, Key West, get on a boat, go out and catch my lunch and dinner fresh, bring it back in, drop it off, give it to Johnny Boy on the dock so he can clean it, because I don't clean fish on my perfect day. I ain't fucking with fish, but I want to eat it, that's part of my perfect day. But my other part of my perfect day is waking up and looking at the mountains, strapping on the snowboard and just hitting some fresh powder for an hour. I don't need to do it all day. And then hop back in, do a little work. You know what I mean?
That's the freedom of the perfect day, right? You can be this and you can incorporate ands, you can incorporate ors into kind of that scenario. It doesn't have to be just so rigid, right? It's a connection with the outdoors, either with the mountains in the powder or the ocean in the beach.
Yeah.
It's a connection, right? So you get down to the real root of what it is. And I think it's so important. And like you said, define it. What does freedom mean to you? That's my definition of freedom. Everybody else's could be a little bit different, but I find it hard. And the biggest thing, Al, is that it gives us decision-making filters. And that's the thing with most people, is that they just don't have solid filters to make the best decisions and faster decisions in their life. And obviously our values, our virtues, our, just kind of the good human, not good human, traits, those are all decision-making filters.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to be moving towards something. If not, that's complacency. And if you become complacent, you're dead. You're done. You're done. It's just a matter. I mean, you're just, And I don't want to be complacent. I don't want to wait to die. I got to be moving towards something.
And that starts with an awareness. So I got to wrap up. We're bringing on another number 1 Remax team, a guy very well, Caleb.
Very well.
We're making that announcement right after this here, and I got to hop on a live. But let's leave you with this. Go research the perfect day exercise, block out time to do it, and just, block out 3 hours. You're not, you could probably do it for longer than that. You may not even need 3 hours, but block out 3 hours, commit to gaining that one little step toward another building block of awareness for you. and then nail that, master that. I can tell you this: I failed on this gratitude journal so many times that I've started and stopped, but this is just what I'm committing to. I'm going to commit to this one little thing. It takes me less than 10 minutes to write three or four things in here.
Yeah.
And it's just another thing. Like, I don't have a problem getting to the gym because I forced myself to go when I don't even want to go. But there's a check in that box. Now it's time to work on the gym in here, and build this muscle stronger than I've built it in the past, and just building a better version of ourselves. So appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you. Happy New Year. We'll see you guys.
All right.
Later.